As you're aware, Peguis First Nation is in the midst of an election in which the citizens of Peguis will go to the polls on March 22, 2013. I've been visiting and talking to people over the past few weeks, and I have been humbled by your words of advice and concern in regards to how things are going in Peguis. One of the biggest concerns that I've heard from a lot of Peguis citizens is about community services. As you know, Peguis First Nation is struggling against the conditions which exist in many First Nation communities, including poverty, the lack of housing, lack of employment and training opportunities. For individuals and families who live in such conditions, emergency and social assistance is a critical necessity. But in Peguis, we've had to reduce community services budgets in recent years. Why and how did we come to such a decision? I want to explain this to you and propose a solution to restore this funding so that the gap that this has created can be addressed. As you know, in 2007, when I was first elected chief, we inherited a deficit of $26 million. And in 2008, the Minister of Indian Affairs notified our council saying they were in process of placing our community into third-party management unless we agreed to strict deficit reduction measures. The council looked at this in some detail, and we learned that if third-party management was imposed, this would have meant switching from a 5-year funding arrangement to a year-to-year arrangement. Here we would have lost $8 to $10 million of our community funding per year of such an arrangement. Even worse, this would have meant a loss of control over managing our own affairs as a community, as well as several other severe restrictions, including cutting back, loss of jobs, programs, and services. The council decided that the only responsible response was to collaborate with INAC and proceed with funding cuts in order to avoid third-party management. The council agreed that the deficit would be paid down by cutting back on services over a period of 5 years, but we would retain the block funding arrangement and be under co-management regime rather than third-party management. So we had cut budgets in all program areas, including community services. The funding cuts in each year has meant hardships to many people who otherwise do not have sufficient means to provide for adequate shelter, food, and emergency assistance situations. I've heard from people that cutbacks and cost-cutting measures have to be borne by us all, and that individuals must be held responsible for their own living situations. Peguis, however, is bound by tradition and cultural values that tell us that every individual must be taken care of and that our collective wealth must be shared by all. This principle has guided us for our people for 1,000 of years. Today, I'm announcing that immediately we'll put in a proposal before our council and community to restore community services funding to pre-2000 levels in 2 phases. In phase 1, an increased fund from increased own source revenues will be established that will be managed by community service to address the needs of those who qualify for assistance due to hardship, family emergency, and poverty situations. In phase 2, the council will engage community band members to select a committee to oversee this fund over a longer term. From a moral perspective, I am sure that all band members share in the belief that social and income disparities should be addressed in a fair and considered way so that everyone has a chance to achieve well-being and their full potential. In addition, from a strict economic point of view, a vast majority of studies demonstrated that when not addressed, poverty brings further financial costs in other program areas such as health and social. I want to thank you for supporting me over the last 6 years as chief. I wish all the candidates all the best in this election. Miigwech.